So we've now got Redux installed into our app. We've got a simple reducer that's doing simple tasks, such as dealing with this counter. But even this simple task resulted in a fair bit of boilerplate code, especially when we're talking about the actions, using action creators. It's all just adding boilerplate code into our application. And this switch statement as well, a lot of developers consider all of this unnecessary boilerplate. And if you take a look at the functionality that we've added, well, it's not really doing very much for all of that, for all of those lines of code. So let's take a look at an alternative, and we're going to take a look at using Redux Toolkit for writing Redux logic. And if we take a look at Redux Toolkit, then it's an official, opinionated, batteries included toolset for efficient Redux development. And it's intended to be the standard way to write Redux logic, and they strongly recommend that you use it. Now, it's not often in this React and Redux world that you get such opinionated tools to use, and having an opinionated toolkit can really help us with our development and really help us stick to what is the best practice way to use Redux. And we can simply go ahead and npm install this, and this comes with everything that we need apart from React Redux, because Redux is not just specific to React. So we would still need that package separately, but when you're developing a new application, you know you're going to use Redux, you might as well just come in and install this one straight away. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it into my VS Code terminal and press return. And once this is installed, let's go take a look at what this actually gives us. So we'll keep the counter reducer here, but we're not going to be using it. We'll just keep it there to compare against very soon. And let's close the others down for the time being. And inside our contact page, just create a new file, and we're going to call this one counter slice.ts. As each piece of state, or each piece of state that we create for a feature, is going to be a slice of our overall Redux state. So let's go ahead and create this, and I'll just copy some code from our counter reducer. We just need the interface and the initial states. That part is going to stay the same. But just to be clear, I'm going to change the title to with Redux Toolkit. And then let's go make use of the Redux Toolkit itself. So we're going to export a const, or a function still, called counterslice. And we're going to use a function from the Redux Toolkit called createSlice. Inside the createSlice method, we pass it an options object and also our reducers. And if we look at the description, this is a function that accepts an initial state, an object full of reducer functions, and the slice name, and automatically generates action creators and action types that correspond to the reducers and the state. Now, our action creators and action types, if we go and compare to our counter reducer, these are our action types, and these are our action creators. So by using the counter slice, it's going to create all of these on our behalf. And let's go take a look. So inside our create slice, we'll open some curly brackets and we give our slice a name. And in this case, it's just going to be called counter. We'll then pass it the initial states that we have created above here. And then we add any reducers that we want. Now our reducers are going to be the same two functions that we had here. And in this case, we used a switch statement to define what was going to happen. But in the case of the counter slice, what we can do inside our reducers is we can give our reducer actions a name, and I'm just going to call it increment. And then we pass the state and the action as arguments. And then we open up an arrow and curly brackets. And then we can say state.data. And then we can say plus or equals action.payload. And at the moment you're thinking, whoa, that's mutating state. You're setting state.data to its new value. I'm not creating a copy. I'm actually mutating state inside a reducer function. And if I go back to the Redux and the best practices and priority A essential, the first thing it says here is do not mutate state. And it's essential. And yet I'm going to demonstrate using Redux Toolkit and doing exactly that, mutating state. But if we go and take a look at the documentation for Redux Toolkit and head over to this page and click Get Started, then we can take a look at the reasons, the whys, the wherefores, and taking a look at this, and take a look at the quick starts. And we scroll down a bit to where they actually make use of this and using the Redux state slice, then we can see that inside here, then we're actually mutating state. We're doing exactly the same thing as they're doing inside here. But inside the Redux Toolkit, it uses immer, a library called immer that allows us to write mutating update logic that becomes correct immutable updates. So even though we're writing code that technically is mutating something, the immer library inside is doing this in the background for us to make it immutable and update Redux correctly. So it's actually advised using Redux Toolkit to just go ahead and mutate states. So that's exactly what we'll do. So we've got our increment function there, and we need the corresponding decrement function. So I'm just going to be slightly lazy, copy this and paste it below, and just update the increments to decrements, and change plus to minus in the action payload. Then after this, we say export const, and we're going to specify increments and decrements as the two functions that we're exporting here. And then we can use our counter slice and specify actions. And these are the action creators that Redux Toolkit is creating for us. All of that work that we did in our counter reducer with the types and the action creators is being taken care of by our counter slice function and these reducers here. So a lot less code for the same functionality. Now we just need to go and update our store to also use the Redux Toolkit. So let's open up our configure store method and we'll comment this code out, and what we'll specify instead, we'll say export const store equals, and we'll use the configure store method, but this time from Redux Toolkit. So instead of creating a method we're calling configure store, we're actually going to use a method that's been created for us inside the Redux Toolkit to do this, and we'll open up parentheses. And if we look at the description here, it's a friendly abstraction over the standard Redux create store function. So it makes it nice and easy to create our store with our reducers. So we'll open up curly brackets, and inside here we can specify the reducers that we're going to provide to our store. And we've only got one reducer so far, but we'll give it a name of counter, and then we can specify counter slice and dot reducer. And then we can go back to our index.tsx, and we'll remove this import. We'll also remove the store variable here, where we used our configure store, and now we'll just use our store and import it directly from app store configure store. And let's just go back to the configure store and just remove the imports that we're not using anymore. And before we go and test this, there's a couple of types I want to create in here and a couple of custom hooks that's going to make it much easier to use Redux in our app. If we go and take a look at our contact page, then inside the state selector here, I had to specify the counter state. Don't really want to do that all the time. I want to make this as easy as possible to use whilst I'm building the application. So inside the configure store method, we're just going to create some types, and we're going to say export type and call it root state, and we're going to specify return type or equals return type, and then specify type of, and then we're going to say store and get state. And don't add the parentheses, even though this is a function, we just want the type of thing that this returns. and then we're going to store it in this type variable called root state. We're also going to export another type called app dispatch, and we're going to specify this is equal to type of and store.dispatch. Again, these are just types to make it easier for us to use what we're doing here inside TypeScript. And then we're also going to create a couple of custom hooks inside here. One's going to be called use app dispatch. And we're going to set this equal to a function where we're going to return use dispatch, but we're going to give it a type property of app dispatch. And instead of using use dispatch that we get from React Redux, we're going to use our own custom hook, which is already typed to app dispatch, which is of type of store dispatch. And we'll do the same for the selector as well. So we'll say export const use app selector, and then we'll use a type that we get called typed use selector hook that we get from React Redux, and then we'll pass in our root state, and then we'll specify equals use selector. And instead of using use selector, we're going to use our use app selector. So with this in place, let's go back to our contact page and we'll update a few things here. Instead of using dispatch, we're going to specify use app dispatch, the one that we've just created. And for our use selector, instead of using use selector, we're going to say use app selector. And when we pass in our state, then it's going to be correctly typed. And what we can specify here is state.counter, which is getting our counter state from the store. And we've got IntelliSense and autocomplete available now for this. And then we just need to update our functions. And we don't want to bring in the decrement and increment from our counter reducer. So let's remove that. We can also remove our use dispatch and use selector. And then if we use the quick fix, we should be able to bring in our decrement from counter slice and the increment also from counter slice as well. And we haven't made these values optional, so I'm just going to hard code 1 in there to decrement and increment by 1 as well. Now we should have all of the same functionality that we had before, and let's go take a look. And if we refresh the page, we've got our longer title with the font that's way too big, but that's fine for this demo, and we should be able to increment and we should be able to decrement and increment by 5. But we've done this using the Redux Toolkit now with a lot less code than we had before. What we'll take a look at next is possibly one of the greatest features of using Redux, and that's the Redux DevTools.